My daughter called me burden at doctor visit. Doctor witnessed it. Now she's out of my will. When my daughter Tina looked the doctor in the eye and said, "My father is becoming such a burden, doctor. When will this finally be over?" I smiled, walked to my car, and made one call to my lawyer. By the next morning, I had removed her completely from my $2.3 million estate and changed all my beneficiaries. And that was just the beginning of my plan. Justice must be restored and arrogance punished. You won't believe what I did next. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening in the comments. I could smell Tina's expensive vanilla candles the moment I walked into her living room that Tuesday afternoon. The scent mixed with the leather from her sectional sofa, the one I'd helped her buy last spring when she said the old furniture was embarrassing for her dinner parties. I settled into the familiar cushions, admiring the marble coffee table where my grandchildren's drawings were scattered between fashion magazines. "Dad, I'm so glad you could come over before we head to Dr. Corey," Tina said, adjusting the silk curtains I'd paid to have installed. Everything in this room told the story of my generosity. The 65-inch television mounted on the wall, $3,200 from my savings. The Persian rug under my feet, another $1,800 when Tina decided the hardwood floors looked too bare for entertaining. The house felt warm and welcoming, exactly the kind of place I'd dreamed of visiting my daughter and grandchildren. I watched 8-year-old Zoe coloring at the kitchen counter while 10-year-old Terry practiced piano in the corner. This was what family was supposed to feel like. "How are you feeling about the doctor visit?" Tina asked, checking her phone for what seemed like the 10th time in 5 minutes. "A little nervous," I admitted. "The chest pains have been getting worse, and Dr. Corey wanted to discuss some new test results." She replied absently, scrolling through what looked like Facebook. "Zoe, Terry, get your shoes on. We need to leave soon." Something in her tone felt different today. Distant, like she was handling a chore rather than supporting her father through a medical scare. I pushed the feeling aside. Tina had always been practical, focused. That's how she'd built her successful real estate business. 20 minutes later, we sat in Dr. Corey's office reviewing my latest heart scan results. The doctor's expression was serious but not alarming. "Mr. Thompson, the good news is that this is very manageable with the right medication and lifestyle changes," Dr. Corey explained. "We're looking at a solid treatment plan that should have you feeling much better within weeks." I felt a wave of relief wash over me. "So this isn't, I was worried about." No, doctor." Corey smiled kindly. "You're going to be fine. You'll need regular monitoring, maybe some help with daily activities while we adjust your medications, but you've got many good years ahead of you." That's when I heard Tina sigh heavily beside me. "Doctor," she said, her voice carrying that professional tone she used with difficult clients. "Let's be realistic here. My father is becoming such a burden. When will this finally be over?" The room went completely silent. Dr. Corey's pen stopped moving across his notepad. I felt my chest tighten, but not from any heart condition. "I'm sorry," Dr. Corey said quietly. He can't live alone anymore. He needs constant help. And honestly, I have my own family to think about. My kids, my business, my husband's career. When will this finally be over so we can all move on with our lives?" The words hung in the warm air between us like poison gas. Dr. Corey looked from Tina to me, his face a mixture of shock and disappointment. I sat perfectly still, watching my daughter discuss my death like a delayed flight that was inconveniencing her travel plans. "Mrs. Richardson," Dr. Corey said carefully, "your father's condition is very treatable. He could live another 15 to 20 years with proper care." Tina's face actually fell. 20 years. I stood up slowly, my legs steadier than they'd been in months. "Thank you, Dr. Corey. I think I have all the information I need." "Dad, wait, I didn't mean—" "I'll find my own way home," I said quietly. "Tell the children I said goodbye." I walked out of that office, down the corridor, through the lobby, and into the parking lot where my truck waited in the December cold. Behind me, I could hear Tina's heels clicking on the polished floor, but I didn't turn around. I got in my truck, started the engine, and drove away from the most painful moment of my life. The 15-minute drive to my house felt like hours. I took the long way, down Maple Street past the diner where Tina and I used to eat pancakes every Saturday morning when she was small, past the park where I'd pushed her on the swings until she was too cool to let her friends see us together. The numbers started rolling through my head like a broken slot machine. $2,400 every month for the past 6 years since her divorce. That was $172,800. More money than Martha and I had saved in the first decade of our marriage. Gone. Just gone into a house where I was nothing but a burden waiting to die. But it wasn't just the monthly payments. There was the down payment on her house when she needed to start fresh after the divorce. $85,000 from my retirement account. The business loan I'd co-signed when she started her real estate company. $45,000 that I was still paying off. The kids' private school tuition. $18,000 per year for both children. I pressed the accelerator harder than necessary as I turned onto Oak Street. The truck responded with a growl that matched the sound building in my chest. Elm Avenue. That was where I'd taken out a home equity loan to cover Tina's emergency kitchen renovation 3 years ago. Dad, I can't have clients over with these old cabinets, she'd said. $32,000 for granite countertops and custom cabinetry that she probably never even thought about anymore. Pine Street, where I'd spent my Saturday mornings for 2 years, helping her build her real estate business, answering phones, and showing houses while she focused on networking. Free labor from a man who was apparently nothing more than a burden. I pulled into my driveway, the one with the faded concrete I couldn't afford to repair because every spare dollar went to supporting Tina's lifestyle. My porch light flickered, another repair I'd been putting off while paying for her children's ballet lessons and soccer camps. Inside, the house felt different, quieter, but not the comfortable quiet of a home at peace. This was the silence of a man finally understanding how little his sacrifices had meant to the person he'd sacrificed everything for. My phone rang at exactly 4:17 p.m. Tina's name flashed on the screen like a neon sign advertising disappointment. Dad, we need to talk about what happened at the doctor's office. Do we? I kept my voice level controlled. You're taking this completely out of context. I was just being practical. You know how I get when I'm stressed. Practical. I walked to my kitchen window and looked out at Martha's rose garden, dormant now, but ready to bloom again come spring. You called me a burden and asked when I would finally die so you could move on with your life. What context makes that acceptable? Dad, that's not what I meant, and you know it. Then what did you mean, Tina? A pause. I could hear her breathing, probably trying to find the right words to make this my fault somehow. Look, I've been under tremendous pressure lately. The business is demanding. The kids need so much attention. And honestly, yes, worrying about your health on top of everything else is stressful. I'm only human, and I'm only your father. Don't be dramatic. You know I love you. The words felt hollow, like she was reading from a script she practiced. I sat down at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd helped her with homework every night for 12 years. Tina, let me ask you something. When was the last time you visited me just to see how I was doing? Not because you needed money, not because the kids had a school event, just because you want to spend time with your father. Silence. When was the last time you called to check on me after Martha died? When was the last time you asked about my loneliness, my health, whether I needed help with anything that didn't involve writing you a check? More silence. Longer this time. Dad, I've been busy building a life, raising children, trying to... When was the last time you thanked me for anything, Tina? For the house payments, for the school tuition, for the business loan I'm still paying off at 74 years old. That's not fair. I never asked you to. You never asked? I almost laughed. Tina, you've asked me for money 67 times in the past 6 years. I have every text message, every phone call, every emergency that required immediate financial assistance. Dad, you're my father. That's what fathers do. They help their children. And what do children do for their fathers, Tina? The question hung between us like smoke from a fire that had just started burning. Did they love them? They appreciate them. By calling them burdens in front of medical professionals? By wishing for their death so they can move on with their lives? Her voice got smaller, defensive. I was having a moment. I said something I didn't mean under stress. Can't you forgive me? I walked to my living room, where Martha's photograph sat on the mantel next to pictures of Tina's children. My wife's smile seemed sad now, like she knew what was coming. Tina, I forgave you the moment the words left your mouth. But forgiveness doesn't mean I'm going to pretend this didn't happen. What does that mean? It means I'm finally done being your personal bank account. It means I'm done funding a lifestyle for someone who sees me as an obstacle to their happiness. Dad, you can't be serious. This conversation is over, Tina. We're done pretending to be family. I hung up the phone and set it carefully on the counter. Around me, the house felt lighter somehow, like a burden had been lifted from my shoulders. The documents spread across my kitchen table looked like evidence at a crime scene. 6 years of bank statements, each one showing the same automatic transfer on the 15th of every month. $2,400 vanishing from my account into hers, a paper trail of my own generosity turned exploitation. I pulled out my calculator, the same one I'd used to run my construction business for 30 years, and started adding methodically. Monthly payments, $2,400 times 72 months equals $172,800. The house down payment, $85,000. Business loan payments, $45,000. Private school tuition, $108,000 over 6 years. But there were smaller things too, things I'd forgotten about until I saw them in my records. The family vacation to Disney World I'd paid for last summer, $6,500. The timer furnace broke, and I covered the replacement, $3,800. Christmas and birthday gifts for the grandchildren that I'd been buying all along, $2,500 per year minimum. The grand total came to $421,600. Nearly $500,000 I'd given to someone who thought I was a burden waiting to die. I sat back in my chair, looking at the numbers until they blurred. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about respect, about love, about the fundamental understanding of what family meant. I looked around my own kitchen at the outdated appliances I couldn't afford to replace. The linoleum floor that was cracking near the sink. The walls that needed fresh paint. All because I've been pouring my resources into someone else's life while neglecting my own. I reached for my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the number I needed. First National Bank, customer service. This is Robert Thompson. I need to cancel an automatic transfer effective immediately. Certainly, sir. I'll need your account number and some verification information. I rattled off the numbers, listening to her type in the background. Professional, efficient, no questions about why a 74-year-old man was canceling payments that had been going on for 6 years. I see the transfer you're referring to, Mr. Thompson. $2,400 monthly to Tina Richardson's account. How long has this transfer been active? 6 years. Too long. And you want to cancel it effective immediately? Effective immediately. Done. The transfer has been canceled. Is there anything else I can help you with today? No, I said, surprising myself with how good that word felt. That's everything. But it wasn't everything. Not even close. At 8:30 the next morning, my phone rang. Tina's number flashed on the screen like an emergency beacon. Dad, there's a problem with the bank transfer. The money didn't come through yesterday. That's not a problem, I said calmly, stirring my coffee. That's intentional. What do you mean intentional? Dad, I have a mortgage payment due today. The kids have school fees. I have business expenses. Tina, I'm actually having some chest discomfort this morning. Could you possibly drive me to the emergency room? I really shouldn't drive when I'm feeling like this. A pause. I could practically hear her calculating whether this was worth her time. Dad, I have 3 client meetings today and a closing this afternoon. Can't you call an ambulance? I suppose I could. Although, after what happened yesterday, I thought maybe you'd want to make sure your burden of a father gets proper medical attention. Don't be manipulative. You know I care about you. Doi. I kept my voice gentle, curious. Because yesterday you asked the doctor when my medical condition would finally kill me, so you could move on with your life. I was stressed. I said something stupid under pressure. Tina, let me ask you something. If I were really having a medical emergency right now, what would be more important to you? Making sure I got help, or your client meetings? Silence. Long, telling silence. Dad, That's not a fair question. It's the only question that matters. I hung up the phone and turned it off completely. For the next 6 hours, I did exactly what I wanted to do. I made pancakes from scratch, something I hadn't done since Martha died, because Tina always said they were too heavy for the grandchildren. I sat in my garden and talked to Martha's roses, telling them about the previous day's events. I called my old friend Jim and had a real conversation about fishing and retirement and the weather. At 2:47 p.m., I heard car doors slamming in my driveway. Angry voices. Footsteps marching toward my front door. The pounding started immediately. Not knocking, pounding. The kind of aggressive hammering that shook the door frame and announced pure fury. Dad, Dad, open this door right now. I took my time walking to the front door, made sure my expression was perfectly calm, and opened it slowly. Tina stood there with her husband Mike, both of them looking like they'd driven straight from a disaster zone. Tina's hair was disheveled, her makeup smeared. Mike's usually perfect business attire was wrinkled. What the hell is wrong with you? Tina pushed past me into my living room. I missed 2 client meetings because I was worried you were dying in a hospital somewhere. I'm sorry you were worried, I said evenly. But I never asked you to worry. You said you were having chest pains and needed to go to the emergency room. And when I asked for help, you told me you had client meetings. So you lied about being sick just to prove a point? Mike stepped forward, his banker's composure barely containing his anger. Robert, this childish behavior has to stop. First you cancel the monthly payments without warning. Now you're playing games with fake medical emergencies. Fake? I looked at Mike with genuine interest. Yesterday, your wife told the doctor she was tired of being burdened by my medical problems and wanted to know when I would finally die. Today, when I had concerns about my health, she chose business meetings over making sure I was okay. What exactly is fake about learning where I stand in my daughter's priorities? Tina's face flushed red. Dad, that's not. I was just... Mike, tell him I was worried. You were worried, Mike said dutifully. But you can't just manipulate people like this. Like what? I asked quietly. Like holding money hostage when you don't get the attention you want. Like playing victim when people have responsibilities and commitments. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Is that what you think this is about? Attention, isn't it? Mike's voice carried the condescending tone of someone explaining something obvious to someone slow. Look, we get it. You're lonely since Martha died. You want more time with Tina and the kids. But you can't just threaten people's financial security to get what you want. I walked to my mantel where Martha's photo sat next to my will, the one I'd updated that morning. Mike, let me ask you something. In the 6 years since Tina's divorce, how much money do you think I've given your family? I don't know the exact. $421,000. The number hung in the air like smoke. That's more than you make in 4 years at the bank. Mike's face went pale. Now let me ask you this. In those 6 years, how many times do you think Tina has visited me just to spend time together? Not to ask for money, not for the children's events, just to see how her father was doing. Silence. The answer is 0, Mike. 0 visits, just to check on the man who's been supporting your family for 6 years. Tina found her voice. That's not true. We spent Christmas together and Easter and the kids' birthdays. Events where I was invited to bring gifts and money, not where I was welcomed as family. Dad, you're being ridiculous. Am I? Yesterday, you told a medical professional that I was a burden and asked when you could finally move on with your life. Today, you chose client meetings over helping me with a health concern. What part of that sounds like family to you? Mike stepped closer, his voice dropping to something that might have been meant as intimidating. Look, old man, I know people in this town. Important people. Banking connections, legal connections. You can't just cut off financial support to your own family without consequences. This is my house, I said quietly. And I want you both out now. Dad, now. Tina stared at me for a long moment, then made the biggest mistake of her life. Fina, but you're going to regret this. When word gets out about how you've abandoned your own daughter and grandchildren, when people know what kind of man you really are, you'll come crawling back begging us to forgive you. She paused at the door, her face twisted with anger. You're a bitter old man, Dad. Mom would be ashamed of who you've become. They left. But Tina was right about one thing. Someone was going to regret this. Just not who she thought. 2 days later, I found a Facebook post that changed everything. I've been checking social media more regularly since Martha died, trying to stay connected to family and friends. It was Tina's latest status update that caught my attention. Dealing with a difficult family situation right now. Sometimes parents can become manipulative when they get older, using money and guilt to control their adult children. Asking for prayers and patience as we navigate this challenging time. Hashtag family struggle, hashtag elder care, hashtag boundaries. The post had 37 likes and 12 comments, all offering sympathy for poor Tina dealing with her difficult father. But it was the comments that really opened my eyes. You're such a saint for putting up with this, Tina. Elderly parents can be so demanding. You're doing your best. Maybe it's time to consider assisted living for him. I read through every comment, every suggestion that I was a manipulative old man making my daughter's life difficult. Not one person asked for my side of the story. Not one person wondered if maybe there was more to this situation. My laptop became command central for the next phase of this war. I spent the morning researching everyone who had commented on Tina's post. Her business associates, her neighbors, her children's teachers, her church friends. All of them now convinced that I was some kind of difficult parent who was emotionally manipulating my saintly daughter. But I also found something else. Something that gave me everything I needed. Tina's business Facebook page told a very different story than her personal posts. Photos from last month's Top Producer Awards dinner, $150 per plate at the Riverside Hotel. Her new BMW in the real estate company parking lot, easily $60,000. The vacation photos from Hawaii just 6 weeks ago, probably $8,000 for the whole family. All of this funded by the $2,400 per month she'd been receiving from her manipulative, difficult father. But the most damaging evidence was in her real estate company's public records. Sales commissions, property listings, business income, all of it publicly available through the state licensing board. Tina Richardson wasn't struggling financially. She was earning over $180,000 per year in commissions alone. She didn't need my money. She just wanted it. I clicked through to Mike's LinkedIn profile. Senior loan officer at First National, same bank where I'd been a customer for 20 years. His recent post about achieving work-life balance included photos from their Hawaii vacation and their new boat, another $25,000 purchase I apparently hadn't been asked to fund. These people had made 3 critical mistakes. First, they'd underestimated my intelligence and determination. Second, they'd gone public with their attack on my character. Third, they documented their entire privileged lifestyle online while portraying themselves as victims of my financial manipulation. I opened a new document and began typing. Not a response to Tina's Facebook post, something much better. A comprehensive timeline of every dollar I'd given them over 6 years, with dates, amounts, and purposes. Bank records, canceled checks, loan documents. Everything meticulously organized and cross-referenced. The evidence folder grew thicker by the hour. Screenshots of their vacation photos with dates and estimated costs. Copies of Mike's social media posts about their new purchases. Tina's business income records showing she could easily afford her lifestyle without my help. Tomorrow was Saturday. According to Tina's Facebook events, she was hosting a neighborhood barbecue at her house. 25 guests, including her business associates, the kids' teachers, her church friends, and several neighbors. Perfect. Saturday morning dawned clear and warm, the kind of June day that made you grateful to be alive. I dressed carefully in my best khaki pants and the navy polo shirt Martha had bought me for Father's Day 3 years ago. I wanted to look like the successful, dignified man I'd always been, not the manipulative burden Tina had portrayed online. At 11:30 a.m., I loaded my briefcase with evidence packets and drove to Tina's house in Maple Ridge Estates. Her driveway was full of cars, just as I'd expected. I could hear laughter and conversation coming from the backyard, along with the sound of children playing in the pool I'd helped pay for. The smell of barbecue mixed with expensive candles drifted through the air. I parked on the street and walked calmly to the front door, briefcase in hand. Tina answered, her face going white when she saw me. "Dad, what are you doing here?" Hello, sweetheart. I hope you don't mind, but I have some things to share with your guests. Family business that I think they should understand. Dad, you can't just. But I was already walking past her toward the backyard, where 25 people were gathered around the pool and patio furniture I'd helped purchase. Excuse me, everyone, I said pleasantly, setting my briefcase on the outdoor dining table. I'm Robert Thompson, Tina's father. I believe some of you may have seen her recent Facebook post about her family situation. The conversation stopped immediately. 25 faces turned toward me with expressions ranging from curiosity to discomfort. I'm here to provide some context that I think you deserve to have. Tina appeared beside me, her face flushed with panic. Dad, please don't do this. Do what, honey? Tell the truth. I opened my briefcase and began distributing packets of documents to everyone within reach. These are copies of every financial transaction between Tina and me over the past 6 years. Bank statements, canceled checks, loan documents, everything that shows the $421,600 I've given to support her lifestyle. I heard several people gasp. Someone whispered, 400,000? Now, I continued, pulling out printed screenshots. Here are photos from Tina's social media showing the vacations, the new car, the business success, all funded by the monthly payments I'd been making. A woman I recognized as Zoe's teacher looked up from the documents with confusion. Tina, I don't understand. These bank records show your father has been supporting you financially, but your Facebook post said he was being manipulative with money. Tina tried to grab the papers. This is completely inappropriate. Dad, you need to leave right now. Actually, I said calmly, I think your guests deserve to know the whole story. Yesterday, Tina posted on Facebook asking for prayers and patience while dealing with her manipulative father who uses money to control her. What she didn't mention was that 2 days earlier, she had sat in a doctor's office and told the physician that I was becoming such a burden and asked when I would finally be over so she could move on with her life. The silence that followed was deafening. A man I didn't recognize, probably one of Mike's banking colleagues, looked up from the financial documents. Tina, is this accurate? Has your father really been giving you over $2,000 a month for 6 years? It's more complicated than it looks. And then I continued, pulling out my phone when I asked her to drive me to the emergency room the next day because I was having chest pains. She told me she was too busy with client meetings. I looked around at the 25 faces staring at us with expressions of shock and disappointment. I want everyone here to understand something. I didn't abandon my daughter financially because I'm manipulative or controlling. I stopped supporting her because she told a medical professional she wished I would die so she could move on with her life, and then she posted on social media portraying me as a difficult parent when I decided I wouldn't fund that attitude anymore. Zoe's teacher stood up, still holding the bank statements. Tina, this shows your father has been incredibly generous. Why would you characterize him as manipulative? Because, I said quietly, some people confuse generosity with obligation. They think that because you've helped them in the past, you're required to help them forever, regardless of how they treat you. Mike appeared from inside the house, probably having been alerted by someone. His face was red with anger and embarrassment. This is private family business, he said loudly. Robert, you're completely out of line here. Am I? I turned to address the group. Mike here told me 2 days ago that I couldn't hold money hostage when people have responsibilities and commitments. What he didn't mention was that his wife earns over $180,000 per year in real estate commissions. She doesn't need my money. She just wants it. One of Tina's business associates, a woman in an expensive suit, looked at Tina with surprise. You're one of our top producers. Why would you need financial support from your father? Tina's carefully constructed image was crumbling in real time. Everyone, please. This is a misunderstanding. My father he's been having health issues, and sometimes elderly people can become confused about situations. Confused? I pulled out one final document. This is a letter from Dr. Corey confirming that I'm in excellent mental health and fully competent to manage my affairs. What I'm not confused about is the difference between family who loves you and family who uses you. I closed my briefcase and looked around at the stunned faces. I wanted all of you to know the truth because Tina asked for your prayers and support in dealing with her difficult father. Now you can make an informed decision about whether she's really the victim in this situation. I walked toward the gate, then turned back. Oh, and Tina? The children are welcome to visit their grandfather anytime. They're innocent in all this, and they'll always have a place in my life and my will. You, however, are no longer my beneficiary. I've left your inheritance to the children's hospital where your mother volunteered. She would have been proud to know her memory was honored by people who actually appreciate generosity. I walked out of that backyard to the sound of 25 people asking Tina very difficult questions. It was the most satisfying Father's Day I'd had in years. 3 months later, the consequences were still unfolding like ripples in a pond. Tina's real estate business took a significant hit when word spread through the professional community about what she'd done. Several clients canceled their listings after hearing the story from mutual friends. Her reputation for integrity, so crucial in real estate, never fully recovered. Mike faced an ethics inquiry at the bank after his colleagues learned he'd been threatening an elderly customer who happened to be a long-standing account holder. The inquiry didn't result in termination, but it stalled his career advancement indefinitely. Most devastating was the social fallout. In their upper-middle-class community, the story of Tina calling her father a burden while taking his money became a cautionary tale. Invitations to social events dried up. The kids started asking uncomfortable questions about why Grandpa wasn't around anymore. But the hardest consequence for Tina was discovering what she'd actually lost. In September, she called me for the first time since the barbecue. Her voice was small, broken in a way I'd never heard before. Dad, I need to tell you something. I've been going to counseling since what happened, and I realize now how wrong I was. I listened in silence. I was so focused on building my life, my business, my family's future, that I forgot to appreciate what you were sacrificing for us. I took your generosity for granted and convinced myself I deserved it instead of being grateful for it. Go on. The counselor asked me to calculate how much my lifestyle would change without your support, and Dad, I never realized how much I'd been depending on you. Not just the money, but the security of knowing you were always there, always willing to help. She paused, and I could hear her crying. I called you a burden when the truth is, you were the foundation that everything else was built on. And I threw it all away because I was selfish and stupid and took you for granted. I sat in Martha's chair, looking out at her rose garden where new blooms were finally showing after the long summer drought. Tina, I forgave you months ago, but forgiveness doesn't mean going back to the way things were. I know that now. But Dad, is there any chance? Any way we could start over? Not with money or obligations, just could we try to build a real relationship based on respect and love instead of financial dependence? I thought about that question for a long time. This woman who had hurt me so deeply, who had reduced me to a burden and wished for my death, was also the little girl I'd raised and loved for 36 years. Tina, if you want a relationship with me, you'll have to earn it. You'll have to show me, through your actions, not your words, that you understand what respect and appreciation look like. How do I do that? You start by visiting me, not when you need something, but when you want to give something. You call to check on my health, not to discuss your problems. You include me in family decisions not because I'm funding them, but because my opinion matters to you. And the will, your inheritance. I smiled, something I hadn't done during our conversation until that moment. Tina, if you can show me over time that you've learned to value relationships over resources, that you understand the difference between love and money, then we'll talk about my estate. But first, you have to show me you want a father, not a bank account. We talked for another 30 minutes about the grandchildren, about our counseling, about the mistakes we'd both made over the years. It wasn't a reconciliation, but it was a beginning. After she hung up, I poured myself a glass of the good whiskey and stepped onto my back porch. The evening air was cool with the promise of autumn, and Martha's roses were putting on their final show of the year. My phone buzzed with a text message from Jim, my fishing buddy. Dinner tomorrow? My treat. I smiled and typed back. Wouldn't miss it. Real relationships, it turned out, were something you found with people who actually wanted your company, not your money. Everything else was just expensive theater, and I was done buying tickets to shows where I wasn't welcome on stage. I'm 74 years old now, and I've never been clearer about what matters. My money goes to people who appreciate it. My time goes to people who value it. And my love goes to people who return it. Some people think family means you have to tolerate anything, accept any treatment, forgive any offense just because you share blood. But real family, the kind Martha and I had, the kind I'm building now with friends who choose me, the kind I hope to rebuild with Tina if she proves she's changed, is based on mutual respect, genuine care, and authentic love. That's not revenge. That's justice. And justice, I've learned, feels a lot like freedom. If you like this story, please like this video. Subscribe to the channel and share your impressions of this story in the comments.
If this story got you thinking, go ahead and hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe for more real stories that hit deep, and tap the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. And hey, if you know someone who needs to hear this one, share it with them. Thanks for watching.